Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sara Lihz. I am so excited to be here with you today. I am sharing one of my favorite cards I've made in a very long time. It has this pop-up double slider with these little aliens and a spaceship that lights up, a little hatch in the back so we can replace that battery when it wears out because I know it's going to get played with a ton. And I can't wait to show you all of this. So we're going to start by making a background, and I am using some black cardstock and some interference inks. These are from Lisa Horton, and I love how easy they make a galaxy background. So I have 3 different colors. I started with Opal Blush. It's a blue ink, but on black cardstock, it has this pink shimmer that is absolutely gorgeous. This next color is called Royal Truffle, so it's a brown ink. You can see that brown ink on my glass board here, but it has this beautiful blue shimmer, and then the last one is Regal Gray. So it's a gray ink with some purple shimmer. If you were using this on white cardstock, you would see the dye of the ink, right? So not the shimmer color, but the actual ink color more. But on a black background, this works so brilliantly. They layer on top of each other nicely. And then I'm going to come in with just some black ink. This is Memento Tuxedo Black, and I didn't want to be going back and forth from my ink pad onto this shimmer ink because it's not really dry yet, and I didn't want to put shimmer into my black ink pad. So I just added a little bit of ink onto my glass board. It's way more than I needed, but you're going to see I actually go back in and grab more ink at one point here. And I am just kind of going all over. The sort of key to a galaxy background is to bring in some of that black ink. And then I'm going to finish it off with Delicata Black Shimmer Ink. This is just a black shimmery ink. What I love about all of these shimmers, Lisa Horton, the Delicata, they all dry really well. I find that's sort of the challenge of a shimmery ink. I own lots of them in lots of different brands, and not all of them dry even when I heat set them. So these are all pretty foolproof brands, and I love that. I am going to heat set this off camera just to make sure it's pretty dry, but you can see all that beautiful shine. I am going to put this onto my Better Press, and I am using the new Starfield Letterpress plate from Trinity Stamps. So instead of hot foil plates, they're now releasing these letterpress plates, which are just like Better Press plates. And I'm going all over it with some silver metallic ink. This is also a Delicata ink, but you could use the Lisa Horton. There's lots of really great ones. You could hot foil this instead. That hot foil will work just fine on top of this metallic ink. But this was a little easier, and I've been really loving using my Better Press lately. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out of here, and you can see how great this is. You guys, if you didn't have that letterpress plate, you could just do some splatter, something like that, and get something similar. Next, I'm going to assemble the tiny alien, and I love him so much. You guys, this is another new one from Trinity Stamps. They had a huge space release, and they teamed up with Pear Blossom for Creativation. On this release, you'll find lots of products that pair well together. I actually made 4 of these aliens, but I'll just show you the one. He's really simple to put together. So we have his mouth, we have his eyes, and then his body. I will say that ears are very delicate, so be careful when you're working with the ears. I wanted the little pupils of his eyes to be black, so I'm just going to use a little marker and color that in and then layer the die cut on top of it. So I didn't have to worry about finding that tiny little black dot. That would go inside of the eyeballs. Nobody's got time for that. And then I'm using my pickup stick. It's got a little wax tip on one end. It really helps me with placement. And I am just using that sort of pokey end to get a little bit of the glue out of there. I'm making sure that I can see the black behind it all the way and that I didn't miss something. So a little glue at the top of his body, you guys. So there's a tiny alien, and then there's a tiny astronaut, and they are just... they're like the 2 best parts of this release. Look at him. I am stealing just the wording from this die set. It's called Tiny UFO, and it has a sentiment that says Greetings Earthling, but all of the letters of Greetings Earthling are separate. So I'm going to put a little rip and stick sheet behind that. So I'm turning them into stickers, and then I've cut out sort of the shadow for it just out of regular cardstock. But the stickers make it super easy to put this together. Sometimes I get lucky and all of those letters stick into the die, and so I can just lay the die right down on top of the shadow. I was hoping for that. I had my fingers crossed, but that didn't happen this time. That's okay. So I just thought this was really, really adorable. And I'm just going to kind of fiddle with it. That rip and stick sheet is a little malleable until you press super hard, but there is our finished greeting. For the front scene of our card, I don't want our alien floating out in the middle of outer space. So I have a little stencil die combo we're going to use. This is called Crater Layers from Trinity Stamps. And so I've just stenciled the bottom of it and masked off the part right above it because all of the pieces are on the same stencil and it comes with the die that's going to cut this out, which is going to be really, really helpful. So I did the first sort of layer of the craters, and then I'm coming in with a dark gray ink, but actually it wasn't dark enough. So I'm going to come back in a second here with some black ink to really make that pop. And here's our reveal. I love this, but the magic happens when you die cut that out. I felt like my light gray was a little too clean, so I am just using the leftover ink on my brush. It's black ink, but there's not a lot of it. And I'm going to go over that, darken it up, and give it a little bit of shadowing here and there. And that will make it fit beautifully onto the front of our card. So I love that. At this point, we have almost all of our pieces except for this UFO. This is called Space Saucer, and I'm going to take the largest die and I'm going to position it at the top left of my card, and I'm just making sure everything's going to fit on the front before I go cutting things out of the background that I made. I'm going to tape that down and then I'll run it through my die cutting machine, and we're going to get a little hole that is perfect to create a window for our lights and for our pop-up feature. So on the back, I'm going to add some acetate, and I have just added some double-sided adhesive all around the outside of it to hold that acetate on there. I didn't feel like messing around with glue at this point. I like Grafix shrink film. You can't take a heat gun to it, but as long as you're not doing that, and typically I'm not, it is the clearest, sturdiest plastic I have found. And so that creates a little extra stability back there for us. Then I'm going to build that space saucer right onto the front of our card. First, I'm adding that frame that goes at the top of our saucer, but on the bottom, there are lots of layers, and one of them has all of these little holes in it. And so I'm going to put a little bit of vellum behind those holes so that I can color them in. I have a purple, a blue, and like a fuchsia pink alcohol marker. Any alcohol markers or Sharpie markers would be great here, and that will let my lights look colored as they're blinking behind it. We're going to use a twinkle light. Then I will add this onto my card. It's really important that I cut that hole and that the piece behind this part of the saucer is acetate. It's perfectly clear, and so we're going to be able to see those lights blinking through it. This is just one of so many examples of the way Amanda and Tanisa, the owners of Trinity and Pear Blossom, really work together so that this particular release gives you tons of easy ways to light up your cards. Like, I cannot get over it. I cannot. I have a couple of layers here, and then even that silver piece that's going to go at the bottom, it also has holes in it so the lights can blink all the way through. Y'all, it's just brilliant. It's just so brilliant. I like to put a little bit of glue on my tiny pieces, and then I will often tap them off on the back of my hand just to remove any excess glue, keep it from sort of smearing out from behind there. And that sort of puts our whole saucer together. Here's the thing. We're making a light up pop-up, but if you just wanted to make a cute front of a card, you could essentially make this whole card without the pop-up and just the lights, or even without either one of them. I love that when you make an interactive card, if there's a way to simplify it, to make it for somebody who doesn't do interactive cards, though I imagine if you're watching this on the Pear Blossom channel, you love interactive cards as much as I do. But there's always lots of ways to stretch this. I'm adding glue onto the back of my moon, and I'll put it down at the bottom of my card base, and then I'll just trim off the excess. I put this sort of all the way to the side because I wanted the spot where my alien is sitting to be as low as possible, or standing, I guess. And I'll put glue all over the back of him. I'm paying special attention to his arms and feet, his ears, and his little antenna. I don't know what they are, right? Alien anatomy. But those are not connected by big pieces of cardstock. So I want to make sure they have adhesive behind him and he's going to be super safe. This is my card base. It's a top folding A2, and we're going to work on connecting these two. So I am marking on my card base where the alien's belly button is. That's where we're going to have the button for our twinkle lights. So here's a twinkle light. I put a battery in it, I push the button, and I have 3 separate lights that twinkle on and off, and it is so magical. I have it flipped upside down. I have the button over the pencil mark that I drew, and I have double-sided adhesive tape on my sort of battery piece of this. And I'm just going to trace around the outside of it so we can make a hatch to replace that battery if we need to. It's laying right over the pencil mark, and then I will just line up my card front panel on top of the card base and pick up that light with the adhesive. And now it's attached to the card front panel. I find it much easier to install things this way, and it makes it easier to replace the battery. So I'm going to keep making some pencil marks on my card base. I am just tracing a rectangle around where the battery pack lives. You wouldn't have to trace that all out necessarily. You could do fewer marks, but I wanted to make sure you could see. And then I will use a score line to connect 2 cuts that I made, just connecting all the way to the other side. So I have this little flap, this door, so I'll be able to get in there even after the card is finished. I'm going to gently curl the wires for my lights, and I have some space up towards the top of the card. So I'm using Scotch tape. I love this for lights because you can see right through it, right? It's not going to affect the way the lights work. And then I will place these so that the yellow part at the end of those wires is facing out towards the front of the card. That's the light itself. And I find I get the best results when I do it that way. Again, I'm just using some clear tape, Scotch tape, to add that on there. And then if there's any extra wires kind of hanging out, I will again gently curl those and then just tape them to my card. I should have traced onto my card base the shape of this space saucer before I built the whole thing, but I forgot. So I have this piece that I've cut out of acetate. It could be made out of cardstock. I just held it right behind my saucer, and then I'm going to gently trace around it. This is going to help me to know where my pop-up elements should go. To create our pop-up, we're going to use Emergency Card Essentials die set number 3. I designed this for Trinity Stamps. It does have a rocket in it, but honestly, this is just an interactive die that is sort of an all seasons die set. I'm using this smaller H and a little strip of packaging from like a die set or a stamp set. I added some removable adhesive at one end, and I am gently wrapping that acetate around the H, and then I will lay it on top of the adhesive. I want just the tiniest bit of wiggle room. If it's too snug, it doesn't want to move, and I want to be able to sort of roll it, if you will, around the H. So here I'm testing it and making sure it moves, and then I'll push that adhesive all the way to the top. I'm bringing in a marker just to help you see better. I'm going to make a line on top of the adhesive, and then I will flip it over. That one's at the top. On the other side, I'm going to make a mark at the bottom. I need to add more double-sided adhesive on top of those 2 lines to make this element work. I'm using Trinity Stamps Rip and Stick 1/4 inch tape here, but most double-sided adhesive tapes will work just fine for this. In that same die set, again, it's called Emergency Card Essentials, die set number 3, double slider, there is a tall, skinny rectangle, okay? And so I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip it over so I have the pretty side facing my desk, and I am adhering it to the strip that's at the top. So when I pull on this, right, and I'm testing, I'm making sure it will move. When I pull on this, you can see the other adhesive strip is moving. And I'm going to find my placement. I want this right underneath that saucer. And so I'm making some marks on the card base so I know where this is going to go. And then I'll make another mark on that dark blue cardstock at the bottom. I'm not measuring it. I just want a little bit hanging out where it will say pull, or it will tell somebody what to do with it. So I just trimmed that off using my trimmer off camera. To install this, I'm adding some thin foam strips to either side of the H, only on the side where I have that pull tab, that navy blue cardstock. Then I will remove the release paper and I will add this to my card right inside those pencil lines I made for myself, so I know exactly where it goes. From here, I want to make sure that I'm testing it and pulling it and making sure that it moves. Next, I have a piece of cardstock that is 2 3/4 of an inch wide by 5 1/8 of an inch tall. It is lining up with the bottom of my H and the top of my card. And I am making marks that correspond with that navy blue cardstock because I have to trim away rectangles on either side of the bottom of this so that it fits within that mechanism. If it were wider, you wouldn't have to do this. But I love the size of this mechanism. If it were any wider, I wouldn't have room for the battery pack for my lights. I wouldn't have room for my window for my pop-up, okay? And so I just have to make sure the bottom of this fits inside that track on top of the acetate we have on that H. Now I'm ready to install this piece. So I am going to remove the release paper from our double-sided tape, and it is all the way at the bottom of the H. Then I will line this piece up with the top of my card, so it's going to be hidden when the mechanism is closed, and I will lay that on top of the adhesive. And now I have a place to put my other aliens so that they will pop up and say hi within that space saucer. It's like a little clown car in there. So I'm lining up the first one and using that window as a guide, and then I'll figure out my placement for the other two. As I build this, I need to make sure that at the bottom, everything is going to fit within that sort of white strip that we cut down. So I'm taping everything together. I'm testing the movement. I'm checking the placement. They're actually a little bit high. So I'm going to bring them down, and you'll see I'm going to run into a little bit of a problem. If I move these, I'm going to have some hands and ears and little pieces of my aliens that are actually outside the narrowest part of my white strip. That's a problem. If I do that, it means they're going to run into the foam tape that we're going to add on each side of the H. So I am being really careful with my placement. I'm tucking my glue bottle underneath my top alien, and then I'll start worrying about the bottom ones, and we're going to perform a little bit of surgery. I want to make sure once again that I have glue under all of those little delicate pieces. So sometimes I'll just pick it up with the tip of my pickup stick and tuck a little glue under those delicate spots. Next, I'm adding glue to connect the pink and green aliens so I can sort of use them as a single piece. It's going to help me make sure that everything fits. So I just removed some arms. It's fine. They don't need all those arms. And you're not going to see it. Then I'm tracing around their feet now that I know the placement is right, and I will just pick them up and add glue so I can be really careful. This piece in particular, it fits a little more snugly than my top alien, so I want to make sure I've got glue in all of the important places. I'll line the feet up with the pencil marks I made before. You're not going to see them, right? They're going to be hidden sort of behind the bottom of the saucer. I am, however, going to add this ear back on. Again, they're kind of delicate. If I want one that's kind of hanging out in midair, I've done this, just stack them up, glue them together, and make them a little sturdier. To finish putting this card together, I need a double layer of the same foam that I used behind the H in all of my open areas, okay? So it looks like one layer of foam here, but that strip on the left, that is 2 layers. I just sort of doubled the tape on top of each other. I love Pear Blossom Press's World's Best Foam Tape, but I didn't have a way to get just a thin layer of that for my interactive mechanism. So this is just regular foam tape. I definitely want to create a guide, a channel on the left and right of that white cardstock and on the left and right of my H, my mechanism. So I'm just holding everything together. I'm making sure it moves. I'm going to open up that battery pack and make sure I can still get to things. And I'm seeing that part of my white cardstock is in the way. It's going to make it very difficult to replace that battery. So I just drew myself a little pencil mark, and I'm trying to see how much I can remove without you being able to see it in the opening of my space saucer. Always double check, right? Once you put that foam tape together, your card together, if you're not using Pear Blossom Press's foam tape, like you're kind of stuck. So Here, I'll just trim that little bit away. I will double check, make sure you can't see it, and we're good to go. Then I'm double checking the battery. Yes, I can get to it. I can replace the battery. I'm going to stamp a sentiment because I was feeling really, really brave here. But I'm only stamping part of it. So I could cut my stamp apart, which I will do sometimes. But here I decided to just mask it off. So I have a little bit of mint tape, like Post-it tape on one side, and then I will ink it up and remove that tape. It just says happy birthday by the time I'm done masking it off, and I'll stamp that at the very top. That will not be visible when the card is closed. I'm going to press it one more time and then we're good to go. So this is the moment of truth. I'm removing the release paper from all of that doubled up foam tape, and I have release paper on either side of my H. I just added one more layer there, and I am using a box to try to get everything lined up correctly. The problem is you can see the sides of my box are bowing. So this card is ever so slightly crooked. Don't tell anybody, but it moves fine, and it's not crooked enough that I was going to try to peel it back up again. I'm going to add my Greetings Earthling to the top. It's so, you guys, I cannot get over like the lights and the pop-up and all the fun stuff. That little double slider is really great when you want something to pop into a window on a card, but there is a larger double slider in the same set that will help you have things popping like out of both sides of the card, which is really fun. So here's our finished card. I press his belly button and my lights go off and they twinkle, and then I can pull my slider and I have these really great aliens popping into the window. I can replace the battery on the inside. Y'all, I hope this inspires you. I hope you'll give a light up card a try. Let me know what you think. Thank you all so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.